Boys and girls, cats of all ages, we have the biggest announcement in Jupiter's history coming up to the stage. Meow!
Liquidity, guys, liquidity, you know? No, thanks. All right, guys, let's do it. All right. Hi, guys, I'm Meow. I'm a cat. All right. Okay, so, been a long day. I just hop on and off. And there's not going to be much slides because I haven't finished it. So, I'm just going to talk shit, all right? Cool? Sounds good? Is that okay? Yeah. All right. Okay. So, where do we think crypto is going, right? Fundamentally, right, we think crypto is going in a very simple way, right? We think crypto is going in the direction, right, of like summarizing, right, like 1 million chains, 1 billion people, and trillion tokens, right? And let's think about it for a while, right? It's like in a world of 1 million chains, 1 billion people, and a trillion tokens, right? And it's happening, by the way. It's crazy. It's happening. How are we gonna make sense of everything? How do we kind of manage everything? How do we even contextualize, search, manage anything, right? And actually, and that's kind of thing that we are focused on, right? And if you think of what we Jupiter just started, right? The first thing that Jupiter did was to aggregate Solana. What does that mean? It means that previously, right, there were many liquidity sources, right? There were many tokens everywhere in different places. And what we did at Jupiter, right, was that we turned all that mass, jumble, confusion, different UXs, different standards, different order books, right, into one extremely simple interface, right? For anybody to adopt. And honestly, it actually wasn't easy. Looking back, it sounds easy, right? How hard can joining things be? Turns out very fucking hard, right? It's like you got all these different tokens, different standards, different AMMs, like different order books, ATA accounts, and and there's just like tons and tons of like endless grind work, right? As in, you use Jupiter to do it. Wow, one click, it works, amazing, right? But it wasn't that simple, right? It was really years of like figuring out all the data stuff, on-chain, off-chain, token search, and everything, right? To kind of get us to where to today, right? But you know what? From that, we learned a lot. We really learned a ton of lessons about what people wanted, how to build systems, how to build good UX, and most importantly, how to grind through problems, right? Jupiter is the endless grind, right? Of like one problem come up, bang, solved. A user complaint, solved, right? Every single user, no matter whether he's like complaining about $1, $10, or $1 million, yes, that happened. We take care of that stuff, right? So I feel like that attitude towards like relentlessly figuring out all the small and big, technical, non-technical, design, non-design, human, non-human, blockchain, non-blockchain, political, non-political thing, right, was kind of like what allowed us to get Jupiter in the first place, right? So, and today I'm really happy, right, to share with you guys, like, and to everyone here, my team, like, everyone, all the great friends here, and all the great cats here, whatever, right? Our next major step, right, which is our next goal is to aggregate everything, right? So, yep. So, so if we started aggregating Solana, our next simple, we want to aggregate everything. Yeah. So that's like I would say that would be our main like driving mantra for the next like maybe, I don't know, 5 years, 6 years, 10 years? I don't know. All right, let's go. So, Jupnet, right? The omni-chain network. Come on, give me, let's go. Whoa! All right, so before I dive into talking about what Jupnet is, right? Obvious, right? It's omni-chain network, right? But I'll say something that I've been working on for a long time. As some of you might know, I started WBTC, right? Which is now the most used wrap token. And obviously, since then, I've been working with a ton of like interchain solutions and a ton of different systems, right? And of course, in my job at Jupiter, right, we work with a ton of like wrap tokens and different networks and everything. So I think, it really is the result of like all these learnings that we introduced Jupnet. So, honestly, I don't know how to do. We were so busy the whole day, we didn't do anything, right? So let's get to the essay, right? So I just finished the essay, all right? So okay, it's my essay. It's on meow.bio.jupnet. Take a look. But today we do Jupnet, right? An omni-chain network that aggregates everything, right, in one single ledger, right? For maximum ease of use, right? For user and developer. And in some sense, think about it, right? What Jupiter did for one network, we now want to do for entire crypto. Provide a single point for users and developers, right? All the liquidity into one single point for all the users and all the developers, right? So I think, as I mentioned, we are moving towards a world of a million chains, a billion chain tokens, and we want to build the infrastructure to connect these billion tokens, right? Sorry. We want to build the infrastructure to connect these million chains in one system, a great UX that's usable by a billion people, and facilitate liquidity, right, fluently, right, for trillion tokens. So there are three main systems that drive Jupnet. Yep, thanks. See, it's fun, right? I stay on the spot. Hey guys, I swear to God, I wrote this in the last hour. Am I right? Yeah. I got the history for that. And then, but yeah, okay, at the core of Jupnet, right, it's actually very important. It's a DAF network, right? So what does DAF stand for? DAFs, decentralized oracles that validate and execute, right? So if you think about it, right, in a regular blockchain, the main job is to do one thing, right? One thing and one thing only, right? To validate internal transactions. Make sense? Right? In fact, one of the cardinal blockchains are simple, right? It's like, as a blockchain, as a contract, I only talk to my own contracts, right? So actually, and then for external transactions, right, we have this thing called oracles, right, which feed in data in the blockchain. And then we have and then we have external transactions, right, that kind of read a bunch of information over the place and they sign them, right? So that is actually okay if your goal is to build simple systems, right? But there's one big problem. Because remember, ledgers only work when there's one source of truth. Make sense? Right? It's the same reason why a database works, right? A centralized exchange works, right? A DB works. Because you have one single source of truth, right? And then similarly, right? And similarly is the reason why a single blockchain works. Because all the nodes come together to agree on one single point of agreement. Make sense? So now, but then if you move this same idea into multi-chain context, right? And you have three different entities: the oracles, the ledger keepers, and the executors. It's too difficult, right? It's not possible to have one single state of truth. So one thing that we do, so at DAF it's very simple. So we built a network called DAFs, right? So we don't call them validators, we call them DAFs, right? And the core is simple, okay? The very validators that actually consolidate internal state are also the one retrieving external information, right? And reaching quorum for agreeing on the information, and also executing on our chains. So what does it mean? It means that whether you are reading transactions or updating your internal ledger or executing or approving transactions, it's one single set of entities that execute that, right? And turns out that actually makes like implementing very complicated things like omni-chain ledgers actually much easier, right? So I think for speed and security, right, and then the DAF network is basically a Jupiter SVM. It's SVM on top of Jupiter. Sorry, it's a Jupiter modification of SVM, and we'll go through that a bit later. Yeah. But the core example is simple. We want a single decentralized source of truth that's agreed on by the birds, right? No matter how, so imagine this, right? You have one single set of birds, right? That they can read external stuff, agree internally, right, and execute external stuff. So no matter how many chains there are, right, it's quite simple, right? All you need to do is that you need one single set of birds to agree. Now, so basically it's very simple. The final state of the world, is exactly what the final state agreement between the DAOs are. So with that ability, right, now let's have a second part, right? The omni-chain ledger network. So with the ability, right, to create a single source of truth between oracles, validators, and executors, right, we can do a next thing very easily. What is it? It means that host an omni-chain ledger. So this system, right, will allow users and applications, right, to easily hold their funds and transact in a very simple way, right, across as mentioned at one, much like a centralized exchange, but in a fully decentralized way. So the most common people ask me is, hey, you know what? One of the main problems is that like speed, right? For example, if you wait until if you wait for a really long time, if you don't wait for long enough for interchain transaction, the problem is that the chain might revert. Right? But if you wait for the thing, if for everything to be final, right? For example, if you wait for L2 to be final at L1, then it becomes extremely slow. You can't do anything. So what we have here is that, can you scroll? So one of the things that's actually one really nice thing, right? But when you combine, when you build an omni-chain ledger, right, on top of a DAF network, right, that can actually agree on what finality means. Turns out that it can actually do some pretty nice things. you can actually do something like, say, like, since we know the value, right, of the given transaction, for example, say a mint, right? Say someone deposited $1, right? Okay, you know what? It's a very fast, it's a very small transaction, right? We don't need to wait for like, that long. Let's go, one block, let's go, whatever, right? Now, but then turns out with the $10 million deposit, right? Then the ledger should be like, hey, shotamate, let's do it for a while, right? And the ledger should reject. Then the birds should actually wait for much longer time, right, before updating a ledger. So this concept of dynamic finality, right, or dynamic speeds, is something that I think we have talked about a lot. But I think what you need to do is actually simple, right? You need to have the same system that's agreeing on consensus and updating a ledger, right, to actually be aware of the value per transaction, right? So that's actually one thing that I think is actually really important. So it's essentially, right, once we have this omni-chain ledger in place, and we are able to abstract away all the complexities, right? I think we can do a lot of really cool apps. Whether it's an intent network that can buy us from anywhere, or whether it's like whether an omni-chain token that can issue on one place and issue and burn to many different networks, or order book that allows spot deposits from anywhere, right? I think the problem of doing all these things is way, way easier, right? When you have those two abstractions. And so let's have a third system, right? The third system is what we consider the aggregated decentralized identity. So we mentioned earlier, guys remember? Remember the million chains, billion people, trillion token idea? Remember that? Cool? Right, I say again, million chains, billion people, trillion tokens, okay? I'm going to be saying it so much that you guys are going to get sick of me, okay? But essentially, right now, if you want a billion people to use this system, right, to migrate away from tax and use system, so what do we need? We really need a much more user-friendly, right, way to approach everything. And as such, right, one thing that we do is one thing that we are pushing on from day one is quite simple. We don't want so we think that for today, right, it's like you either have to install a specific wallet, or you have to rely on a third-party system, right, like Turnkey or like Privy or whatever, right, or Web3 Auth. So we don't want that. So we tried really fucking hard to build a whole new paradigm for user experience, right? That means that we ask ourselves, okay, can we actually put the entire identity and authentication system on chain, right? So that everything, everything, whether the provider credentials or the user sub, right, it's all be able to done on chain. So I think, and so we have created a system called the ADI, and I think so we actually want to push the idea that on Jupnet, you don't use Jupnet via wallets, and you don't use Jupnet via central system. You use Jupnet via this fully on-chain, decentralized identity system that we call ADI. So I think there are a few things I mentioned here, where there's no need for seed, but if you want, you can recover keys. So you can log into Google or Apple or like anything else, or use a regular wallet to introduce to generate your account. But no single service can route you as long as you connect two or more services. And then and also one actually really interesting idea is either ACL, right, access control, and then your identity, right, gains the power to customize the access control, and you can have different systems, right, like one app, two app, three app, right, be able to kind of control and manage access for the same system. So in essence, right, what we are doing is that we are building the solution, right, that merges like decentralized identity and omni-chain liquidity and programmer control, right, under one single roof. And ADIs would be a first-class citizen on Jupnet, right? Which means that we were working really, really hard, such that like every single developer that builds on Jupnet, right, will actually be able to build on top of ADI. So this will be a radically different system, right? From every single thing that we know today. Yep. So as I mentioned earlier, the Jupiter uses SVM, and what we do is that we extend the extend the Solana code base, right? And we added new data structure. We added an extremely innovative BLS signature mechanism, right, to allow the birds to asynchronously, right, agree on the external state while not delaying the regular on-chain mechanism, and to operate in a multi-chain environment, right? And we also obviously added like new syscalls, everything, and data structures for endpoint logic. And in particular, right, we created a mechanism called the BLS Merkle Aggregator that Dee will talk about a bit more, where we will organize the BLS data into a Merkle tree and produce roots and proofs to verify the inclusion of keys and signatures. Yep. So that is something that I think. So in last but not least, we also be actively contributing to Solana VM and contribute to the development to continue making SVM the best operating system in the world. Because, well, I think, so last but not least, right, one concept that I think I've talked about before, right, is the idea of a GAM, right, a global unified market where essentially, all the currencies and all assets will be all and tradable in one single network. And so here's the thing. I strongly believe, right, that crypto will actually be the backbone for everything. And crypto rails will actually be the basis for all finance activity. Just simply because crypto is so much better, right, than regular rails. And obviously, what's going to happen is that these assets, right, that we're creating, these trillions of assets we're creating, it's not going to sit on one chain. It's going to sit on many chains, right? And so for Jupnet, we envision a world where one account can access all the chains and all the currencies and all the commodities, right, in one single place. And we kind of call that the 1A3C vision, Anyway, in summary, I think it will not be easy. It will take a long time. And obviously, we'll continue making Solana the best blockchain, right? While we do that. And there's no, guys, I'll be honest, you guys are pretty honest, right? Cool, right? Cool, right? I'm not gonna stand here and tell you guys it's gonna be perfect, okay? It's gonna be shit, all right? The early version is gonna be tough, it's gonna be rough. There's tons of developer issues to iron out, right? There's tons of we're building a lot of things from scratch, right? Like really from scratch. So it's not gonna be easy, it's gonna be rough, but we try, because we think that being able to build this, because we know how critical it is, right, to actually provide a single endpoint, right, for people, right, to easily access everything, right? If you don't have that endpoint to access everything and stuff, there's no innovation. Why? Because anything that users cannot get to will be dead, right? Make sense? So in order to actually have a extremely vibrant and extremely innovative crypto ecosystem, right? We need to ensure that users, funds, and liquidity can actually get to new ecosystems, right? And that's how it goes. And we think that's actually really important because, otherwise, why do you bother, right? You know what I'm saying? It's like if we can't actually, because today, guys, what is the main distribution point for new chains? Who? Sectors are, right, the biggest distribution point. Every chain that launches, everything that launches, they have to go through an extremely cruciating process, right, called, the listing process, right? But we think that, so anyways, right, in summary, we believe that, if we actually can build this endpoint, right, a truly decentralized and open endpoint, right, that's super easy to use, that aggregates the liquidity from everywhere, that provides an extremely secure and abstracted framework for developers, we think it's good. We think it's great for crypto, great for the world, and great for you, And that's what we're doing. We want to aggregate everything, and that's Jupnet. Wow, let's go!